call to order the Parks and Downtown Improvement Corporation meeting. And do we have any volunteers for our invocation?
I'll do it.
Thank you, Hillary.
Everybody would bow with me. Lord, we just thank you so much for today. We thank you for the members who are able to be here. Lord, give us insight into your will and your plan for our city as we move forward. We thank you for the resources that you have given this board to use, and we just ask that you allow us to use them to the best of our ability moving forward for our city and for our growth. Lord, we ask that you be with the members who are not here, watch over them and bring them safely back to us. We pray for an efficient meeting as we move forward. In your holy name we ask. Amen.
Amen. It's a beautiful prayer. Thank you, Hillary. Okay, well, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
There's a flag right behind you.
Thank you.
Yep.
So join me in the pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, before you, you have a copy of the minutes from our March 25th meeting. Once you've had a chance to review those, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'd make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Hillary.
Second.
We have a second. Thank you, Sarah. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We have some new business to go over, beginning with quality of life audit update. And before Mike begins, I'll say that I had the honor and privilege of attending a joint meeting in which there were representatives from the school board, the city council, the EDC, Southwestern Christian College, Trinity Valley Community College. The city did a wonderful job of pulling together all of those groups to hear where we stand out, both positively and negatively in terms of quality of life. I was grateful that those groups heard that, but it felt like some weight to bear for this group that was designed to improve the quality of life of this town. So without further ado, Mr. Sims.
Yeah, so the essential idea behind the quality of life audit was all about a really simple concept. All of the entities represented in that meeting that President Lucas talked about have to support each other. And what are we doing to create a feedback mechanism and a positive cycle in our community? So we raise our hand and say, we wish we had better jobs in Terrell. Well, what are we doing about it, right? I can assure you that job location decisions, employer decisions are made about what's the existing workforce, right? And so you get this chicken and egg deal of saying, well, how do I get, 10,000 people with PhDs who can work in the telecom corridor? Well, slowly, over a long period of time, right? I have to cultivate that. So the notion was that if we want to help the EDC develop a workforce, then we need to be aiming for putting a quality of life in place that workforce wants. Same thing with if we want to be able to support the ISD. It's easier for the school district to educate kids when they have aggressive parents who send their kids to school because, by golly, that's a demanding parent who really wants a high performance out of their child as their child's going through school. Some of you might have had parents like that. Not going to guess who, but I have a theory about some of the people here. So you say to yourself, okay, what kind of workforce do we want to have come here if we want to have a good feedback mechanism in the school district, right? So with those ideas in mind, we selected a consulting firm, JBJ Management, and we said, okay, help us come up with this profile for who we would need to attract to town if we want to meet those goals. And they said, okay, let's work on that a little bit. And we really came up with sort of a loose definition there of millennials who either had a degree or who had some sort of maybe military or professional training or technical training that might lead you to believe they were going to be aggressive in career somehow in the future. It's a lot easier to find folks who are just college degreed, right? And so most of the focus group work that we did was with people who were more in the college degree side of it. I'll hit this as quickly as possible. I'm going to be mindful of the prayer that we're efficient, and I actually don't have any desire to talk about all 40 of these PowerPoint slides. I'm going to let you do your reading through most of these, but I have a little list on my phone here about the ones I thought were most important to cover. So slide 2, again, identify our target workforce, conduct focus groups with the goal of identifying, summarizing major quality of life factors and themes important to the target workforce. When we distilled those focus group results down, we said job opportunities, community neighborhood, shopping, dining, entertainment, nightlife, walkability, outdoor activity, and education. Those were the categories that they seem interested in when we did our focus groups. Slide 5. Pardon me for, you're going to have to help me, jump slides. So slide 5 is focus groups. We had 23 individuals that JBJ went out and found. They participated in focus groups to determine quality of life factors and themes. They got asked a lot of questions. They happened between late November and early December. And again, you can see all of those responses are what we ended up using as the rubric to test ourselves against. Slide 8 gives you a little bit more of a snapshot here about where we decided to go. So after we got all the results from the focus groups, we said, okay, you got to put this into a methodology, right? We got to be as analytical as we can with some of these qualitative issues. So we're going to score everything A to F, and the highest score is going to get a 16, and then the lowest score is going to get an 8. So there's your A through F ranking scale in all of those different categories. So the next PowerPoint slide, we're going to flip a lot because not all of these are going to be ones I want to focus on today. Slide 21 skips you all the way to something that falls under the heading of Park and Downtown Improvement Corporation. So if I get to slide 21, you see, aha, this is a difficult one for Terrell, right? Young professionals overwhelmingly prefer to be near unique local spots for shopping, dining, entertainment, and nightlife, preferably within walking distance or a short drive. They stated they need to be near necessities such as Target and did not care to be near a Walmart. Very sad for Walmart. Heartbreaking. So there's your scores. A, large variety of local entertainment options and community events to participate in Terrell, as in Terrell, physically located in Terrell. And then you got an F if most of your entertainment options are 20 plus miles away from Terrell, and a C is basically that halfway in between. Well, what if everything was 5 to 10 miles from Terrell? I guess Terrell would get a C if everything great to do was in Forney, right? That would make me unhappy, right? That's not really what we're aiming for, but we could achieve a C that way. So the next slide to go to here is going to be slide number 25. So here's a little info. I won't go through all of it. On slide 25, though, here's an example that the consulting firm came up with. Some of y'all might be familiar with this. This is in College Station, Century Square. And the notion was, well, gosh, if we had that sort of thing, that's what these folks are looking for. As we try to distill down and show a visual to the city council, this was an example of that. Slide 26 is where we scored, and this one hurts, right? So if we analyze it, and we had the consulting go out and try to give us an honest answer, we got an F, right? It's the only F we made in our quality of life audit, but it's an F, and definitely tells you something that we need to be working on here. Nice that we have a couple of, Olive Garden, nice that we have a Film Alley, nice that we've got a couple of other places to go out and eat in town, but it's not really what the millennial group was looking for, right? So moving on, we're going to go to slide 30. So on slide 30, we get outdoor activity. So, okay, that one was downtown. Now we're on parks. So the young professional demographic was focused on healthy outdoor activities. They want to be able to hike, bike, and run in natural settings, dog parks, meeting others in social spaces while walking their pets was important to them. And again, here's your scoring. Outdoor amenities, parks, lakes, and sport facilities are abundant and well-kept, meaning in the city. And then F was no parks or outdoor spaces within 20 miles, and a C would be, again, that kind of halfway space in between. So the next slide here is the one we're going to tackle. So here's a couple of examples of what they were thinking of. Here's White Rock Lake, and here is Town Lake. I always call it Town Lake, I'm sorry, Lady Bird Lake in Austin. I would say that those look great in those photos, but there's also a part there that we also heard they weren't looking for. If you go to Lady Bird Lake right now, you get a lot of camping by the homeless. And one of the things that we heard over and over again was we want clean, we want crisp, we want safe. We don't want to be running into somebody who makes us feel nervous about walking around at night. We want to be able to walk around our city or our green spaces and feel safe when we do so. When I take a look at both of these places, I would tell you Dallas is doing a better job on that topic than Austin is. Slide 32 is just another example of this. A couple of more fancy pictures for you about different locations. And again, things to do in an outdoor location. Slide 34 is the one we're going to skip over to. And here's how we scored. We've got a few parks. It's not like we don't have Ben Gill and Breezy Hill and some nice places to go outside, but they're not going to give you a lengthy walk, right? So you might say to yourself, where can I walk 5 miles or 10 miles or ride my bike 5 miles or 10 miles? And I'll bring up the point that I've been hammering for a long time. We own 3 lakes, and we don't have a way for anybody in this city to enjoy any of our 3 lakes. We've got the old water supply lake, which is hiding kind of behind the dog pound. Nobody hardly even knows it's there. We own a lake at the state hospital that's hard to get to, and nobody really knows it's there. And we own the thing that falsely gets referred to as Lake Elmo, which is actually New City Otero Lake, because we're bad at naming things, and that's what we named it in 1954. So one of these days, I'm going to convince somebody around here to name a lake. It's my great dream for my career, to name that lake, right? I'm going to call it Lake President Lucas, if you'll help me out here. So anyway, those are all places where you would say to yourself, hey, we could really develop some great, wonderful outdoor amenity, but we've simply chosen not to make an investment in that area, right? That's just a thing we've never done before. And we got to see on that category. So moving on, I think that's 34. We'll do 35 now. Education. I'm going to mention this because I don't want any misperceptions out there about how we ranked on the education side. So education isn't strictly y'all's, but I want to make this clear. On education, we didn't decide to go rank the school district, right? School district's got plenty of entities and outside eyes on it, ranking how is our public school doing. What we took the tact of is a thing we heard in the focus groups was, hey, after I graduate, I want more. I want to be able to go back and take a class. I want to be able to go get an additional training thing. I want to be able to have an opportunity to maybe live at home and go to school somehow. And so we really ranked on post-secondary, right? After I graduate from high school, what else is available out there? So slide 35 talks about that a little bit. I think if I skip over to slide 39, you'll see where we came up on that. When you think about colleges around us, they're a little bit further away, so we end up getting a C in that category because you can go to Trinity Valley Community College, you can go to Southwestern Christian College, but those are going to be limited in terms of degree programs. There's no technical college that we have. There you can really get, a lot more. The Economic Development Corporation is aiming to do a partnership with Trinity Valley Community College to do a career and training center. We're trying to launch a program with Southwestern Christian College to do a police academy. Those are more technical training type things, paraprofessional type things. And then, as you know, well, some of y'all know, we've talked a little bit about trying to attract a university to be here. And those are all, again, things that happen after graduation from high school. So there's your C on education, C on walkability. That's basically sidewalks and the arrangement of your city. Can I walk around to destinations within my city? Outdoor activity, that was that B. Shopping, dining, entertainment, nightlife, that was an F. Community neighborhood was a B for us. Basically saying in that category that, yeah, I feel like I might get to know my neighbors around this town, and I might have some friends around this town who live in this town and family who lives in this town. And then on job opportunities, it was a C, because there are a lot of job opportunities, but they're one county over, right? There's some good jobs here, but we wanted more good job opportunities. So we get a C on quality of life. The next slide is really where you guys come in, which is really a purely policy decision that staff should not be running. This is now clearly y'all's decision about, well, whenever we go forward here and update our strategic plan, or we update our comprehensive plan, or do any of the other steps that we might do here, to what extent do our policy boards, the EDC, the Paddock Board, Planning and Zoning, City Council, to what extent do all of the boards of the city want to say, yeah, we're going to be responsive in the things we do to the quality of life audit? Or you might say to yourself, well, that's nice to know, but I can't guide everything I do every day based on the quality of life audit results. How much emphasis you put on these results is really a policy decision that's going to be up to all of the folks on boards, commissions, and on city council. But these are some ways that we would say, well, these are ways where we might be mindful of this moving forward. So that's a quick overview. President Lucas, you got more at the meeting. I'd be happy to answer any questions about it.
I have a comment in terms of this young professionals and why that was a target. And I don't for a second think we have to defend why we're trying to attract young professionals to our town. It is the single smallest demographic of our city. And so that's fact.
Yeah.
Data shows that. So if we're trying to fill that void, then we need to find out what that group wants. It's no coincidence that most of us fit on this board fit into that category. And so I'd like to hear from y'all, and Mike needs to hear from y'all if you believe this to be an accurate representation of what it would take to attract young professionals to Terrell.
Yeah, I would, and I appreciate the efficient overview, but I would also like to see the full study if you don't mind forwarding that along. But yeah, I mean, obviously that is the peers that we have in this town are in this room. And so that's a major consideration moving forward. And I think that as we move up certain categories, the other categories will go up as well. For example, walkability was pretty low. I think if walkability goes up, your neighborhood standard goes from a B to an A, because I think right now what makes that a B is the, you know, not having those interconnected neighborhoods and those safe spaces to go. So I really think these areas all feed off of one another. Yeah. And obviously the retail nightlife portion is the portion we most likely are going to have an impact on in the parks as well. So yeah, I think it's just everybody in their respective.
I'll give you two very different examples of this. One would be, would the Griffith Elm neighborhood be a safer, nicer, better neighborhood if we had an effective sidewalk along 9th Street? I think the answer is yeah. Yeah, you know, I think people would enjoy that. I think people who get kind of trapped on Griffith and say, I'd like to go down over there, but they can't because there's no sidewalk connecting the two. I think that's an impediment to the quality of that neighborhood. Likewise, you can say the same thing about folks who live along South Rockwall, right? Oh, great, there's a nice sidewalk along South Rockwall. We've had some investment, some new homes on South Rockwall, but can you walk to Breezy Hill Park on a sidewalk? No, can't do it, because there's just, all those sidewalks die out right in that zone right there. So I think those are things that staff needs to be mindful of as we move forward, because we can slowly build back sidewalks we never decided to build in the past, and just that alone is a good step for us. I think on the nightlife side of it, Charles is working desperately to get a couple of things done in downtown. We clearly did the Anderson building and the Griffith building incentives with the eye of getting something there. And even though I joke about Washington, D.C., You know, we did go there looking for money specifically so we could do quiet zones, complete streets, town square, all of the things that we want to reinvest in downtown. You know, that's what we were fishing for. And frankly, we found some good grant opportunities, and we're up there that we'll be working on applying for, so.
Yeah, I think just like anything, you start with the foundation. I think we've started. The Anderson building is huge. It's in the works. We have affordable housing, we have affordable rent right now, and it's relatively speaking, nothing's really affordable. And so if we can get these restaurants, the Anderson building, that's in the works. If we can get buildings in downtown rehabbed, and I mean, I'm speaking out of both sides of my mouth because I'm putting myself in a downtown building, but when we plumbed and roughed that, we have an exit plan. When things change, we know we can move a construction and real estate office anywhere and put a restaurant in. And so as things go, we'll start to see that. And as those get rehabbed and the taxes go up, then the TIF dollars go up, and then that's where you can spend the money on sidewalks. Because if we put sidewalks in and we don't have anybody to use them yet, are they really gonna come here? You know, I've never had somebody buy a house and not buy a house because of sidewalks, but I've had people move here and then realize, oh gosh, we don't have them. And as they start to speak up, that's when we need to know that we are getting people, we are getting young families. We're getting a lot of people from Forney. We've had a lot of people from Forney, and I think the TEA made the new rule where you have to re-register every year. I mean, I think we're gonna be shocked to see how many kids go to Forney schools but have been living here for 2 or 3 years, and their parents just never changed the address in Forney. And a lot of it's because we have affordable housing, but you can get a cute house in a cute neighborhood for $100,000 less than a box in a neighborhood that has 1,000 houses. So Terrell has a lot of things, but yeah, this group with this money that we have, the more we can do and focus on getting things ready for restaurants. You know, the Anderson building, if we had 100 of those that we could do right now and we had the money, every building we turn into, from junk to something that holds workers, the hotel's great, the restaurant's great. I mean, if you just take half the money that this group probably spends on dinner at Rockwell and Dallas and put right back here, then it just starts stacking up. And our friends and everyone else. And then people will come here from out of town to see us instead of the other way around. We just have to keep pushing forward on these Anderson building type projects. I mean, they're huge, and look for opportunities like that. I mean, I know that they come to you a lot, and there's a lot of people that aren't coming to them, and they're not doing because taxes, property taxes, they know if they fix their building up, then the county's going to change it to $300,000, $400,000, and now they have double the taxes. But rent's not scaring people off right now. I mean, it used to be 1,000 square foot for $1,000, and you better jump on that. So these downtown buildings can get rent if they're clean. And everything we're doing, I think, is working towards this. It's just a matter of making sure we keep wisely spending that money on I mean, the Anderson building's gonna change everything, we know that. And that's just, there's nothing we can do to make that go fast. That's an old building with old alleys and old infrastructure. But when that opens, I think we're gonna see 3-4 years of our work go, you know, overnight success. So find us more of those. Find us more dumps that we can turn into something pretty. Because that's the fun kind of restaurants anyway. Nobody likes a site-built place. I mean, I like Olive Garden and Chili's, but you kind of want to sit in I even like little sketchy neighborhoods with a nice little restaurant nobody knows about.
Well, and the follow-up to that is I think that there is this misconception, in my opinion, that a space has to be large to be profitable or to be successful. I mean, I can think of a handful, but specifically the Charlie's Taco place in Rockwell, I don't know if any of y'all have ever been, there are 10 tables in the whole thing, and all 10 tables are full, and there's a line outside of people waiting to get in, and they're selling street tacos. Like, it doesn't have to be this grand, luxurious plan. It just has to be good, and it has to be something nobody else has. And so, you know, I think to that point, we don't have to look for only these big town-changing projects. You know, it doesn't have to be on that scale to make a huge impact.
I noticed that this discussion opened our EDC president, whatever Ray is, mind to grocery store, and we've all said it. But the EDC board represents a very different demographic in our town, and I think they're starting to get the message that a next level grocery store is very important to young professionals.
It's
and
important to old people too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Common ground.
Yes.
Awesome. Common ground.
It's a grocery store.
You know what, I'm just gonna say this, you know what young professionals didn't care about? A hospital.
Yeah.
We're not, 1 meal away from a heart attack, okay? Our town needs a hospital, but that wasn't a priority. And I will say, just to be, and I want this to be helpful, the education piece wasn't helpful for me. I think that last thing should have been housing.
Mhm.
No one's moving to our town to go to a branch of a community college or a, theological school. I think housing, we know that, housing will attract people, but I don't know if we have a good feel for what housing young professionals are looking at. We've had conversations about how they really don't want a big house anymore. They really don't need a big yard. I don't know what those trends are, but that information would have been more valuable.
I think Matt can speak to this too. If we had, I don't know if y'all know Robert Rice, but he's building a house on First Street, and it's taken forever to do it because he's just slow.
Took forever.
But a house like that, we could sell all day long. People, and it's actually not small, but if we had 2-bedroom, 2 baths with a carport, cottages that are cute, bungalow style that looks old, they would sell all day long. People are moving here for that. They're moving here to have character, and that is one thing I think as we get started and when we start getting these young professionals and we start getting their opinions, we have to push it hard on these guys to know that maybe we can let loose on some of these brick requirements to make it match the neighborhood. Infill lots, not new construction, new developments, but infill lots. All of the lots are so valuable if somebody can build a cute little house. But I'm with you, the hospital, the schools, or the college, I don't know that they're looking at that too much, but if we had a nice little restaurant, and what are we allowed to do money-wise as far as truly incentivizing a business? Like, I know what we can do with real estate, but if
The only rule you guys are operating under is capital, right? So if it's a capital expenditure, you're good, you're within your rule book. So you can't provide an ongoing operational subsidy, right? But you can do capital. So there's not a rule on what amount. I'll say it this way. When you guys go into executive session with Charles and talk about facade grant, frankly, we say the phrase facade grant, but there's no hard and fast rule on what you might spend on building, because that's a capital improvement. So whether that's roof or foundation or this, that, or the other, or I think Charles is going to talk to you about an asbestos survey for one of these projects. Okay, great. That's a capital improvement. And so as long as you're under the realm of we're doing capital here, then you're within your decision-making purview with your funds.
And one example is Enos in Forney, and that was actually a great example of what not to do and what to do, because originally it was going to be Zanata's, and the EDC built that with Zanata in mind, and then the cost became so much that Zanata changed their mind, and this was a different economy. And the way they got Enos was they owned the building, and so they were able to do a little different. There was another building they didn't own, and so they capitalized the owner to make the improvements that the tenant wanted. And then the owner, as a nice gesture back to the city for helping them, gave that tenant really, really reduced rent for a little while to get started. And so now there's a few really good restaurants, and they would go out and grab them. And I think if we see one, a taco place in Rockwall, and we want them here, find a building where it will work, talk to the owner, figure out why they're a slumlord, and see if we can change their mind about it, and then just figure out how to get them here, because I think we support business here fairly well, the ones we have, but you can only eat Rio Lerma so many times a week, and I'd push that limit. So More restaurants would be great.
Yeah, and it also goes back to decision-making you guys have already done. Remember, the Louis Pena project is to put a restaurant in the Griffith Building and put a restaurant in the Anderson Building. 2 restaurants across the street at the corner of Adelaide and Moore would change your complete opinion about downtown Terrell. And right now, we're on making sure that we're installing a grease trap in the north alley and making sure that we, you know, rework and provide a courtyard opportunity on the Griffith one. So there's, I don't want to say there's not work in progress. That's clearly a effort you guys have already kicked off. So.
I certainly, I'm a millennial as well, and I feel like I could have written most of the study here because I can concur with the looking at shopping, dining, and entertainment. All these photos that I look at are in places that I enjoy visiting when I'm outside of the city of Terrell, right? For that outdoor feel, for something different, good tasting food that you may have. And I think certainly the paddock board, and there's other partners like the city, the EDC, that play a role in that, external partners that can help improve that area, and we can continue to do that together. When I look at walkability, I really would challenge the paddock board and also challenge our city council to look at more of infrastructure. You'll read in the study that there were also concerns of infrastructure in the community, and to me, infrastructure is our streets. So we're working on our streets. We're working, there's drainage opportunities. There's the walkability opportunities. So as we're looking at improving our parks in downtown, continuing to look at those sidewalks and also the streets leading up to the sidewalks. I anticipate individuals will want to walk past where we have our existing parks or we are fixing up the downtown area. Going back, I want to take a step back and go back to the shopping, dining, and entertainment, because I had a conversation recently with Mike, and I said, hey, we have small businesses in our community that sometimes are a hole in the wall, or maybe they have, here recently I've seen where they've opened up like a food truck and are traveling outside. Maybe there's an opportunity for the city or EDC or a local bank to partner with some of the businesses, Small Business Development Center, to enhance the businesses that we already have. We talk about looking to bring other businesses here, but we don't really take a look to see what we could take and go up to the next level. So I'd love to be able to see a partnership between the different entities that we have in the community and look at some of those small businesses and how we can take them up to the next level. When I think about job opportunities, I work remote, and it's been exciting here recently. I try to visit the different parks frequently, and I'm a talker. I'm always talking to community members and trying to figure out, well, how long have you been here? Okay, where do you work? How did you get to Terrell? And you'll be surprised. We have more millennials in our community that are either working 30 minutes down the street, and they're, Texas A&M engineer in aerospace, or they have a home over in Grady Simpson's district, close to where our judge that's not here today lives. And she's, working remote and having moved all the way from Austin to here because they were familiar with the area because of family and because there was housing available here. So I think, kudos to Charles, who's in the room today, for all the work and hours he puts in to continue to work with our with developers to bring in housing. And I think as we continue to see housing, you'll start to see more of those fresh faces. I know, going back to President Lucas' comment on the study being done on millennials. I know we have other generations that are also important, but millennials do have the buying power, and they do have the numbers. So I think it was important to focus on, like Tori said, those that we don't have enough of, and who has the buying power and the numbers moving forward. So I also want to, I also hope that the city and EDC and maybe the chamber, thinking of Allison, will read into kind of the sense of community that community members are having to look at. Because when I think about those individuals I mentioned that I've met recently, I try to get them plugged in. Sometimes the only way I know how to do that is join a city board. I might say there's a Lions Club or there's a Kiwanis Club, but maybe that's not what they're looking for. So is there a sign, that we can post on the road? Is there a certain type of way? I'm thinking of traffic. How can we make sure that we send those individuals to a one-stop shop, or maybe we have that at the chamber/EDC website, but how do we make sure that we sell that in a way that interests those that are coming to the community, or are already here but don't really have that sense of belonging yet?
Let me tackle that with a next step that comes after the quality of life study. And that is that we always anticipated that part of this isn't to say, well, we stink, so we're just going to roll over and die, right? Part of this was we did find some good things out about ourselves. And I'll use your local restaurants that are worth promoting right now today, right? So I think, and I can never say the name of this correctly, Omaira's going to help me out on this, my taco place that's on North Francis. Thank you. Let the record show she pronounced it correctly. The tortilla taro. Did I get it right? Awesome. Bueno, gracias. So I'd say they're worth going to. I'd say that if we have cottages, we have some good parks, we have some good places to eat, then shame on us if we don't put together an advertising campaign and say, hey, millennials, come here today because we are an awesome place, right? So we don't want to sit back and say, well, we failed, and we'll advertise to millennials 5 years from now. Part of our point was to say, hey, let's gather up our resources and say, okay, if you want small lots with small houses, they're coming, right? So in order, I'm now advancing a conversation going on in council right now. We've been working really hard to negotiate voluntary annexations with some landowners who have hundreds or thousands of acres, right? And sometimes when you do that, you can say, we want exactly this, and they walk away, and they can develop that outside the city limits, right? So sometimes we have compromise negotiations there. You're going to see some of those coming forward soon, and that's going to radically change the housing market in Terrell, because we didn't say, give us the absolute best only executive houses and da-da-da, because we needed these guys to annex into the city limits, because what we can't have is uncontrolled development where I can't send the Terrell Police Department to take care of a neighborhood that's in Terrell Independent School District, right? So that's a big philosophy point on city council. If it's going to be 1,000-house development, then shame on us if we can't get it into the city limits somehow. So we're going through that process right now. I think that as those housing areas open up, even as the Rose Hill Woodlands project opens up, right? So they shifted on us. They said, well, we're going to be single-family home ownership, and they've changed their business model. They've sold now to a company that's going to do it all as luxury single-family rentals. Well, okay, same thing though. Shame on us if we can't be in the middle of that advertising, right? A successful city for decades in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, successful cities have said to themselves, wow, there's a housing boom going on. Who do I want to have live here? Let me make sure I'm advertising my city to the audience that I wish were moving here, right? So that's successful cities. Unsuccessful cities have said, those guys building the houses, they'll take care of advertising. Whoever moves here and buys a house moves here and buys a house, right? And my suggestion to you is that part of what we wanted to use the quality of life audit for was to focus some residential advertising. And we'll be trying to use the results of this to focus in on that, as well as those new waves of houses get built on the west side of town. Maybe that was a longer answer than you wanted, but I want to just emphasize there's more than one way to use this, right? And I like very much the idea that we've got some businesses in town that need our support today. I want to make sure we do that. And we have people who are going to offer houses for sale in our community today, tomorrow, and the next day. And we need to be advertising ourselves to the target audience right now today. So, yeah.
Mr. President, I think, I just remembered, it's been a pandemic ago since we've had like a really good just round table, not official business, no, quorum may be present, but no official business conducted workshop to make sure we're all still on the same page, or, and it could, even if it's just all of us at dinner, I suppose we probably still need to send notice saying no official business.
I'm going to put that answer on steroids, though, and I'm going to tell you that what staff has talked about is doing a joint meeting and basically an informal meeting between between the city council and the paddock board, because that's a conversation that probably really needs to happen in an informal sense of you guys sitting there and saying, hey, we've done this much work this far. This is what we thought of the quality of life audit. This is what we think of housing. This is what the city council's thinking. Are you guys on the same page with city council? That's a great dinner chat or lunch chat or whatever it might be. And we have that on our horizon. So I just want to echo. I think we got to do that.
More honest chat too.
Thank you, Matt. Yes, if we can accelerate that, and no PowerPoint needed, just a round table.
I love giving PowerPoints. They're so disappointing.
All right, in the interest of time, we'll move on to the next matter of discussion, which is the Excel soccer field project.
Okay, so if you look at Resolution 2022-1, which I think is correctly numbered, we want to authorize $250,000 of your $400,000 contingency fund in order to build the Excel Center Bridge. So the idea here goes like this. Whenever we borrowed $3.5 million to build projects, y'all voted on a plan on spending that money. And that plan, after you voted on it, it went to City Council and got voted on. They agreed with you and voted on your recommendation, said yes to your recommendation. So if you flip over a couple of pages in your packet, you'll see Resolution 1053, and you'll see the list that's in here. So we say, okay, Breezy Hill, lighting, 250, Breezy Hill land acquisition, that's 250. Ben Gill parking lot lighting, 100,000. Ben Gill Park field lighting in the amount of $1 million. You see those lights up, trying to get those turned on. The restroom package, $1.5 million. The first one's been ordered. It'll be installed this summer, and then we'll decide if we like them enough to buy a whole bunch. And then the contingency/alternative projects. I think we're coming in on price with enough of these that we can go ahead and be responsive to what we think is an important need out there at the Excel Center, which is, how do I get people who park at the Excel Center parking lot, or they're at a program at the Excel Center, or they're school kids and they want to go across the drainage ditch and use the soccer fields? We think that we can get that built for about $250,000. We think your contingency is adequate for that. So if we had a $400,000 contingency, our suggestion as staff is let's spend $250,000 of that on the bridge. There's a map in there that shows you on agenda item page 48 about where that would be roughly. And so kiddos could walk out of the Excel Center, parents could walk out of the Excel Center and just get across to the soccer fields. We're really just landing on the other side of the ditch, but it gets you over there, and we'll do a little bit of improvements to the paved or unpaved area. That's that road that hides behind the softball complex, between the softball complex and the soccer fields. We're going to do just a little bit of improvement to that as a city, but we think this is a good step and good safety improvement for us. Right now, those people are crossing right up on Colquitt, or they're walking through the ditch, and I think we can do better than that. So that's our suggestion, is to pass this resolution so we can move on with that project.
I've got some questions, if you don't mind. So I see where it's going to be. Can you I guess, first tell me why we selected that location, and then second, kind of tell me what are we talking about, rails? Are we talking about just a concrete path? Are we?
So, let's see if I got a good example of this. The wooden bridge that goes over drainage at the pavilion, that is basically how you might walk over to the pool. That's the wooden version of one of these things, and we're really advancing to the point where we like to get what you see in a lot of other cities, which is I'm buying a precast metal bridge, and that metal bridge has metal railings on the sides, and then it's got a concrete surface that you're walking over. I've got to put down concrete abutments on either side of the drainage, and then I bring that prefabbed bridge in and just set it on top of those. That's a much more long-lasting thing for us. I think we've scoped out an 8-foot wide and a 10-foot wide option on that just to see where we can get it on pricing. So it should be a much easier to maintain, much longer lasting structure for us.
Okay, I have one, what I consider probably a pretty big concern on my part. So I'm on the Parks Board, and we were presented a resolution last night. This is 2022-1. The one we were presented said an amount not to exceed $250,000, which was already concerning to me, just because this concrete doesn't seem to be a $250,000 expense. But now it just says authorized to use $250,000. So I was already a little concerned about the budget of $250 for 800 square foot of sidewalk and 400 square foot of bridge, but now I'm just not sure what changed on the resolution.
I think that might just be a little sloppy work on our side. So if you want to include not to exceed, that's perfectly fine with staff. Yeah.
I was ready with the language to include not to exceed on that as well.
Yeah, and I mean, I understand cities and schools, and I understand that there's a ton that goes on the bid process. And when I first received this from Mr. Caldwell to review before the Parks meeting, I asked him the same question, simply because I've done a few projects with concrete lately, and I thought, real quick math, that this is about a $90,000 worth of concrete plus whatever engineering is involved in the bridge. And so 250 scared me. So I definitely want to put not to exceed, and then make sure that we really shop that concrete bid.
Happy to do so.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The goal isn't to spend $250. The goal is to deliver the project, and if we end up with some money left over, I think that'd be a better thing. So.
I remember trying to have a conversation with Mike about, multiple times seeing families with, small children on bikes trying to cross over from the Excel Center or simply that sidewalk to go over. And then I thought about, well, what happens when you have a kiddo in a wheelchair?
Sure.
You have kiddos that are on their bikes, or just simply families that are trying to move from one place to the other without the kiddos falling. So it was something that was on my radar. I also wonder, and going back to the price, I wasn't sure if, I know we'd like to give ourselves some wiggle room. So certainly also have the concern, maybe that's a little bit too much. And at the same time, I also wonder about the lighting in the area. Should a family, need to walk over that bridge? And is there an opportunity to consider lighting? How will that look for somebody trying to cross over? I know we don't have lighting on the other bridge, but depending on what the cost of this would be, or what the paddock board would be willing to also include if this comes to $900,000, or will the contingency, the rest be used, like you said, for paving around?
Let me address that by saying that I think we have some city council source of funds where we would be able to fill in some pedestrian scale lighting. You've seen what we've done at Breezy Hill, right? So we've got that model of lower lights. I think that's the appropriate thing in that area, but let me have the guys take a look at ambient lighting from the Excel Center parking lot, lighting from the soccer fields, Let us do a little analysis on that, and if we need to fill in some sidewalk lights, I think that's a pretty straightforward add-on that we don't need to go to the paddock board for. I think we can take that out of some city funds.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll just
You know, I'm having problems with Encore, and we're just working through that process. I don't want to make a commitment right now, but I will ask Allison, would you help me get an update out to everybody in the next week or so? We'll email you a more reliable schedule than me spouting off right now.
My thought, I have a little bit of heartburn about this because it's not the big vision, ideas that we were tasked with. It seems very just necessary. So in terms of scale, I'm guessing there will be a 2-3 foot clearance on this. It may not need big elaborate sides to keep people on the bridge. Kids may fall into the grass or a puddle, not a river or lake. So if you're talking about like the bridge at the park that has like side rails, fairly elaborate side rails, I don't know if we need all that or we just need a path.
Well, I would say that the model there is that because you get these as precast structural units, you're going to find most of the affordable models of that as the railing itself is part of what makes the structure a hard structure, right? A structurally safe structure that you can ship and move around and that sort of thing. So I think it's also like one of these ADA standard issues where I'm not sure I get ADA clearance if I don't have some sort of railing on a bridge that has those clearance issues. So I think we're gonna end up with railing based on that's where the market is about what's viable. But I understand the point. I think we want to make sure that we don't overspend on this topic, and I'm understanding the feedback.
Because when I look at this picture alone,
Yeah.
it reminds me in what poor shape the roads are around our also poor shape softball fields,
Mm-hmm.
dirt infield softball fields. I look at the seating in our soccer fields where there's no shade structures hardly to speak of, and there's just so many more things, more impactful things to spend this money on. We still need more benches, and maybe there's more seating coming at the incredible new playground at Ben Gill, but there's, just no.
We have some of those ordered. Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think we could scale this down quite a bit.
Listen, I'll give you another option there. It's also within y'all's purview to say, hey, for 250, why don't you city staff get tasked with adding some shade structures out there? I mean, there's no reason we couldn't have this come land and get a little bit of a shade structure done out there. I think that, we were a little we were being cautious with the number. Right, we're clearly being cautious with the 250, right? Because we just don't know how bids are going to come back and that sort of thing. If you challenge us with trying to figure out how we get some shade structure out there as part of this effort, then we'll go try to get that done. I think that would be a great upgrade for the soccer field area.
Can we circle back to why this location was selected? Is it because it's the only thing that connects to another?
It was just a little bit narrower. I think we're saving a little bit of space there. I can go double check with the guys. Are you thinking that you'd like to see it a little bit closer to the building? Was that your?
So from this picture, it kind of looks like because we're going at an angle, we're paying for more concrete versus if we took a more direct route. And also, I don't know, because it doesn't show in this photo, but if we were connecting more of the front part to the sidewalk that's already at Colquitt, I think maybe all of us would feel more comfortable justifying a larger expenditure on something that is frontage to sidewalk, that it's going to have more traffic than, in my opinion, this location.
So I think, because there is already a sidewalk that goes from the Excel to the soccer fields on Colquitt, I think this is meant to connect this parking lot to the soccer fields.
I believe that the depth, as you get closer to the road, I believe the depth also gets, it does. So I think the closer you come towards the tennis field there, where that's where you have that, it's a lot higher, the ground is a lot higher. So I would assume that, I'm not an engineer, but I would assume that your height becomes lower.
Yeah, and I'm just going to try to put this into words for emotion, okay? So if the direction to staff is that you want us to reevaluate the exact location so that we can polish that up and improve that, we're happy to do that. I don't know that you need to have that part in the motion, because I think I can hear you and work on that as we're working on this. On the other hand, I do think if you're going to add shade structure to this, then that I would put in the motion for sure. But I can just commit to you as staff, I will go back and double check, you know, are we really crossing at the right place here? And maybe it does need to move a little bit to the north. So happy to do that.
And how much of this structure is being built on TISD's property? Are they willing to participate?
They've asked us to take this effort on, and my comment is I think this is the kind of expense I'd like to be able to help the school district out with. So.
Okay, so you're proposing that we include the shade structures in this resolution?
My comment is, if y'all are interested in that, I think we can afford that within the 250, because I think we put a little fluff in that 250. And if you'd like us to include that, then I'm happy to do so. I think that's a terrific add-on, frankly. So.
The motion might read that we authorize an expenditure up to $250,000 for this bridge sidewalk and to include some shade structures for the soccer fields.
Yeah. If you make that motion, then we will get it reworked, and when we bring this resolution to City Council, we'll have it restated so that what you just verbally said gets reflected in the City Council version of it. No problem.
That's my motion. Any discussion?
I'm,
Once we start shade structure at the soccer fields, there's going to be a lot more places that need it also, and we want to keep it uniform, so that's a big decision to make with the open-ended budget. But you talking about shade structures at the softball field or
Soccer.
Right.
I mean, I do see the need in this, which is kind of funny. We're talking about we want more connectivity, and yet we're trying to save people the need to walk. But I see the need in this because they'll park here for the tournaments, and then they're hoofing it. And if it's raining, they're out there leapfrogging mud puddles, and so this will prevent that. But, you know, $250,000, we spend hours debating $50,000 in a downtown project that has a massive impact, and this is $250 for a puddle cover. But the parks doesn't have the money, I know that, in our budget, and so this is a need. So this is a good, it's a good place to be able to get the money. It is a project that does enhance the usability of our park, so it fits within what we want to do with our parks.
So our options are either to reduce the amount of expenditure or get more for our money.
I'd just like to see what these shade structures are going to look like before we agree to it.
Yeah,
So,
before we sign up.
before we
So
sign up.
the
I'd tell you I'd have you do, Glenn has one, I think.
Oh, really?
When we did the lights, I think he has a shade structure plan for the soccer fields, almost look like a dugout. And I mean, those can be anything from, you've seen them at the pool, kind of a, I want to call it tarp, but it's like canopy style, or you can end up going with like a metal roof
so
kind of thing. They can get real expensive, but also what we want long-term is probably something nice, and so I'd rather wait and have a plan for something really nice than a few shade structures here and there.
So my opinion is that we should keep the shade structure money separate from this.
I agree.
Because if I'm hearing that with this proposal, we can implement shade structures, that tells me we're allocating too much money for the bridge if we think we could do both with it. And also, I'm a little uncomfortable moving forward, voting on something that I can't see what it's gonna look like. Based on this picture, I don't know what we're paying for, and that causes me some heartburn.
I agree with Hillary. I want to see more what the shade structures are going to look like. I wholeheartedly support them. I'm blistered from sitting in the sun last weekend. So, but I really want to separate the two
Yeah,
things.
absolutely. So do we want to lower the budget for this, or do we want to see
table this until we have, I would say, two separate resolutions, one for allocation of funds for shade structure specifically, one for the bridge specifically, and then I think we need to see visuals of what we're gonna get for the projected expected amount of money.
Can I just offer, if y'all are thinking along those lines, then you might cut loose starting the work on the bridge, because I can assure you, ordering the bridge in this day and age, there's a giant lag time with that bridge getting here. And so, you know, if you cut us loose on the bridge, I can get pricing on the bridge, I can know what the bridge cost, and then the next time we have a paddock board meeting, in theory, I can come back and say, hey, the bridge actually ended up being, fill in the dollar amount. That'll give you a sense about how much money you have left, and I can have Glenn bring back the shade structure as a separate item to vote on. If you're not comfortable with the 250 number, give us a different number to work with, and we'll eyeball that different number. My advice to you is, listen, if we like the bridge, let's not hold up the bridge. Let's get the bridge rolling, and then I'll come back later so you can pass a separate resolution on shade structure at the soccer fields.
Mike, obviously you've looked at these bridges. You tell us about what a bridge is going to cost.
Yeah, if you're ordering a bridge, I'm wondering, I guess I had a different idea. I was thinking two giant concrete culverts with concrete overfill and, you know.
It's going to be much more cost-effective for us and give us a much more lasting structure if I can get you a delivered bridge. And a delivered bridge is going to be, it's going to have an arc. It's essentially going to be a concrete and metal version of what's at Ben Gill right now, right? So that wooden bridge, right? It's got a little arc in it, right? That makes it structurally sound when it's got the railing on it. And right now, that wooden one has to get painted, maintained, replaced, blah, blah, blah. If I have concrete and metal in one of those precast things and it's delivered to the city of Terrell, we're going to have a perfectly great bridge for decades and decades that I never have to worry about maintaining. So I think that's the direction that staff's going to advise. And I would just tell you, I think that we're not going to be in the 250 range whenever we come forward with that. So if you'd like photographs of what that's going to be, or you want a specific bid packet, you know, that'd be your other direction for me. Just tell me that you want to see specific numbers, and we'll bring you back an exact item. So.
And Mike, going back to the shade structures, because
Yeah.
we have shade structures at Kings Creek, Stallings, Breezy Hill, over by the pool at Ben Gill Park, and it seems like we've been, certainly it seems like we've used, you know, the same vendor for the same structure. So I would assume, unless we give a different direction, that we would continue the pattern and the same type of.
Frankly, my knee-jerk reaction when y'all say shade structure is we got a great deal on all of that, and so I don't know that we can replicate that, but we did get a really good deal on all those shade structures. They were a little over $100,000 as a package. And so when y'all say shade structure at soccer fields, I think, okay, I can chew that, and I know what to replicate out there, and it would be similar to what we've seen before. Again, though, I don't want y'all to be asked to move forward faster than you're being comfortable, where you're comfortable moving forward. So y'all give me the direction you want, and we'll go at the speed y'all want to go. So.
I was just gonna say, I feel like a bid package would be helpful, because my knee-jerk reaction is that the cap of 250 is too much, but without seeing what this product costs and this product costs, I don't know where the cap needs to be for you to be able to come up with a product. So I just have.
Hey, listen, I'll say it to you this way. If the verbal direction without a vote, again, go back to your Robert's Rules of Order. If you make no motion, right, the resolution just dies. On the other hand, if you want to just verbally tell me, hey, we'd be happy to vote on that if you brought me back specifics, then great. We'll get Glenn to get us all of the bid numbers, and he'll get what he can get off buy board, and he'll get what he can get from vendors or contractors to pour concrete out here, and we'll get you specific on shade structure. And between now and the next paddock board meeting, we can give you a much more detailed, here's some stuff to buy. And if that's the way you'd like to look at it, we can do it that way.
Mike, we'd like to get a bid package put together for
You got it.
before we take action on this.
Sounds good.
And I would say, if you can get the bid package together, could we have just a special call meeting to vote on that and let you move ahead?
Let me work on that topic.
Would that be
Good input.
something we could do?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe have a Zoom option if possible.
I'm sorry, say again?
Possibly a Zoom option if it's one item.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
All right, at this time, we're going to discuss an appointment to Project Review Committee for Complete Streets.
So I believe the last time we met, we had this discussion about whether or not we felt comfortable throwing J.C. Jackson under the bus and asking him to serve on a project review committee. The idea here is that I'm working on putting TxDOT, Union Pacific, Regional Transportation Council, Kaufman County, and City of Terrell and Paddock Board onto a committee to go through what's the design going to be on our Complete Streets project. Obviously, we want to always remind people about this. Your long-term capital plan says that you're the entity in the City of Terrell who is going to provide the local match for Complete Streets. So every time I go out there fishing for dollars, I always think, okay, we're going to come back eventually to the Paddock Board and request the local match. That might be $3.5 million, that might be $5 million. It just really depends on the design and what prices are at the time. So you've seen Nathan Ante, who is your representative who works with Kimley Horn on the project. He's the one shepherding that forward. We've already met with grant agencies on it, and we really need a representative from the Paddock Board to serve on the technical committee. So whether you pick former Commissioner J.C. Jackson or not, that's really up to y'all. We felt like he'd be a good choice because he's got a lot of experience being on government boards. Seemed a natural pick, but it's totally up to you, and we just wanted a vote on that member.
He has the experience on the boards. Oakley has a front row seat to the most impactful intersection probably. Of course, he stepped out.
I know, maybe intentionally so.
I almost don't feel like he would object, but.
Is it possible to have two members represented?
I'll give you the contrary opinion on Mr. Oakley, and I would say this if he was here. It may be that we have to buy land from him in order to slide a sidewalk in or something like that. So I appreciate the fact that he's close, but if I end up with a conflict, then that would be frustrating. So that's a little other opinion there.
JC has said that he's willing to serve in that open role. Everybody's okay with that? Absolutely.
Yeah, and remember, this doesn't mean JC is the only guy who's going to see the plans. We're going to have town hall meetings. We're going to bring the consultant back to you guys over and over again. This is the person who has to go meet with TxDOT and the RTC, blah, 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 to say, hey, this is what the Paddock Board's thinking, and we're providing the local match. So you guys who want to do it the TxDOT way, I got to have somebody forceful at the table to say, hey, we're not agreeing with that. No, never met her before.
Because with all due respect, JC has great experience as a commissioner, but this is who will stand up for our interests as a downtown board.
Yeah, my job is to defer to y'all. So I've made a suggestion, and y'all need to decide who you'd like to have representing it.
I've got blowout opinions, and I do have a law degree, but I'm not sure that my experience in the law is relevant to this specific board. My natural thought was JC as well. And if he's willing to serve, then that makes, I hate voting people into positions when they're not here to speak for themselves, but if he's already represented, he'd be willing. Then
We had that conversation.
Well, with that, I move to appoint J.C. Jackson to the Project Review Committee for Complete Streets.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries.
There you go. Yeah.
Matt, and your name was mentioned while you were away. At this time, we'll
Can I just have a full disclosure moment? They tried to throw you under the bus and put you on the project review committee, and I want you to know I saved you.
Thank you.
Because you might have a conflict with TxDOT having to buy a sidewalk right away from you or something like that. So I try to avoid conflicts of interest when I can, so.
At this time, we'll discuss and consider a resolution for Sesquicentennial Murals.
Now, I have to tell you, as a disclaimer, you cannot vote on this item until you spell the word sesquicentennial, okay? So, Allison is going to shepherd this one along, so.
Good morning. Thank you for having me again. You have before you resolution number 2022-2, and this resolution has some history as to how we got to the historic murals beginning downtown. I think there's only a couple of people in this room that probably remember exactly how that all got started, and Sarah is one of them. But anyway, if y'all have any questions about the historical part of that, I'll be happy to answer them. But right now, what you have before you is a resolution that would request $250,000 to continue the mural project downtown. We went over this last time, but in the interest of time, I would just ask that if you want me to answer any specific questions in the presentation, or if anybody wasn't here last time this was presented, I'll be happy to address those, or give an overview of how those funds would be spent.
Who makes the decision on what the mural looks like? The artist?
Okay, so I believe last time we talked a little bit about this. We have had, multiple visits from artists who are interested in these projects. And so the idea would be they would submit something, and we could form a committee, we could internally just pick. There's so many factors involved with this. One of them would be that a lot of the artists that we've talked to, I would say their pricing is different substantially according to whether they are within a drivable distance, whether they would require additional lodging, those kinds of things. So I'm open to your suggestions, but and
I always hurt people's feelings and don't know who I'm pissing off when I talk. Like, we have a lot of murals in town right now that don't really do anything for anybody.
okay.
You drive by them and you just don't realize they're there until you're out looking for murals. You're like, I never noticed this. And to me, a mural, and I had the same feelings when Barney was doing it, and they did a big mural on the side of the donut shop it's just a sepia tone mural of wagon wheels, and I don't know that, I feel like we're pandering to a very small group of people who want a 65-foot mural of a guy no one's ever heard of giving a deed for Terrell. It's not that it wouldn't be pretty, it's not that it's not a great historic story. That's a lot of money for something that people are just gonna drive by and not say, oh my God, I didn't know that Terrell was bought with a deed out of boot, And so that was my concern after your last presentation. I spent some time driving around looking at all the murals that are here, and I get it. I mean, we do have historic murals, or we have murals of historic events, I should say.
Right.
And if we have historic murals, such as what we are finding out is on the side of that building as they start taking it down, originally murals were not art, they were advertisement. That's kind of the start of them. And then they were made as art. And so that's my opinion of it. I love murals. I would paint a mural on every wall. And I know there's some people that hate murals and don't want them on any wall. There's a huge amount of middle ground in there on what goes up. But to spend a ton of money on a mural, it's a lot of money. And so I do like what you said. I think there needs to be a review board of cool, they're great, they're historic, but I just don't wanna spend all that money to put something on a wall that people just drive by like it's just a flat brick wall. Of course, I also love old red brick, and so where I say I put a mural on everything, that's probably not true. I put a mural on ugly walls just to prevent the ugly wall, but.
So, in this specific resolution calls for $250,000 for 10 different murals and includes kind of the protective coating for existing murals. So out of those 10 murals, it sounds like there would be an African-American history-related mural, and then also the small British themed visual entrances, which I thought were unique. They might be, like I'm thinking of the Alice in Wonderland, or kind of those, opening doors into a different world. So kind of being transported into downtown Terrell, and wanting to take a photo there, right? I think that those specifically, it was good to have a visual of those, because I thought I could see different individuals relating and wanting to take a picture in front of that. I'm, not too crazy about some of the historical murals we have around here. I kind of, I don't know if I speak for all millennials, but as a millennial, I usually look for those bright colored murals, something different, like that doesn't exist anywhere else, but also kind of maybe talks to more of the history and the colors that I'm used to as a millennial versus kind of some of the more historic, older murals. But that's certainly, my own opinion of those murals. So I'm hearing, Matt's concerns, and so some of the thoughts and questions I'm having about, and wanting to hear from the rest of the board is, whether they're looking for, hey, let's go ahead and approve $250,000 for 10 murals. However, each of those needs to come before us, or if we want to go ahead and say, hey, feel free, we have all confidence, take the reels and let us know what you've chosen. That's the kind of the feedback I'm waiting to hear from the rest of the board.
I'm overwhelmed.
Okay. A couple of things I'm hearing from everyone here. One of them would be that a bulk of this money would be spent on what we have referred to as the deed wall. And although I do hear what Matt is saying, I guess there's different ways to look at it. We have applied for a Texas Historical Commission marker that would be at the corner of Adelaide and South Alley, and that would give a description of the deed that transpired to start Terrell. So the feeling was the mural would be a pictorial representation of that deed. It could be that, depending on what y'all think, I mean, maybe the historical marker stands by itself and y'all want to go a different direction with that wall. It is a very ugly wall, as y'all well know. It's a staggered wall, and I think it merits having a mural there of some type. So I guess that's an option. And then the second one would be the wall that we talked about behind the existing Cowboys. So that would be the African-American themed mural. So those would be probably at least half of what this money is. Then the refurbishing and glazing of the additional ones, that number is a very hard number to land on specifically, because it's going to vary according to how old the existing murals are, whether they need to be refurbished and sealed, or they can just be sealed, which most of them are in a fairly close proximity as to age, other than the Frank Ray one over here. I think that one could easily just be sealed and be good. But, again, I hear that y'all don't want to continue with the historic murals, which I understand, but do you want to preserve the ones that are already in existence? I don't know. There's some people that come and they love the history, and there's markers that, people may or may not pay attention to that describe the purpose or the reasoning behind each of those. So,
Let me also throw this in, because there's a funding history story to be told here, and that is that a lot of these murals were funded because of the use of hotel occupancy tax funds. And it always strikes people as really strange, right? And part of the reason that we were funding them under hotel occupancy taxes, A, we were a little crazy, and B, we were using the excuse of saying, well, we're preserving Terrell history. So over and over again, the decision was history, 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 right? Because that was consistent with the funding category. So for point of clarity, my comment to you is a lot of the great artists you're going to work with, if you tell them they have to show their work to a project or an art review committee, they're not even going to work for you. They're going to say, never mind, I'm not showing my work to a committee, because it's not the way artists work. So if you say to yourself, okay, we like African American themed museum or a mural on the Cowboys wall, we can handle one founding of Terrell mural for the Sesquicentennial. And outside of that, we want to diversify, right? We want to start doing other murals with different themes, different ideas, different visuals. Then, again, that's the kind of feedback we're looking for here, right? So, all right.
Well, Allison.
yes,
It's my opinion
okay,
that because we have these murals,
right,
I think we need to refurbish them and take care of them. I've been to too many other towns comparable to our size, and they've got murals that they have done nothing with since they were put up, and it's an eyesore.
right.
And that's what ours will become if we don't take care of that.
Correct.
So that's my very strong opinion about what's there.
Yeah, what she's saying is, when I started looking at these, there were some that I've seen. I knew there's a mural, like next to the Rice Singer's Country Store. I never realized that that had to do with the British one.
Right.
I never looked at it. I never knew the story. And so she looks at it when she goes out of town. There are, and I'm sure you've seen when dealing with this, some of the apps are the new way of doing it. The art walk apps.
Right.
But anything we can do to make sure people have here's a list of the murals and what they're for. Because people will do that. And I do agree. If we have a mural, unless we know for a fact that it just happened to get thrown up on a Saturday by some random person, we owe it to that artist and that group, that board who decided to do it at that time to restore. And restoration's as expensive as, new, but apparently the technology in sealing these things has come a long way. Because there was one in Dallas the other day that was completely graffiti and they power washed a spray paint, but it didn't affect the mural. I'm like, that's
Amazing.
yeah.
And I assume that murals that go up would be sealed.
Right. Automatically, we're trying to build that into this figure where any murals that are put up from this point forward would be sealed so that we don't have to go back and that would extend the life of them. But I do hear what Matt's saying, and I agree with it. I know I'm in the older range, and I appreciate these, but I also believe that especially as we talk about the quality of life audit and recruiting younger people to Terrell, they don't want to come look at a bunch of old murals. And we want to be progressive, and we want to look at some alternate designs, some artists with newer concepts. And in speaking to what you're saying, maybe some of the digital murals. One of the ladies that I've been working with, Heather Reichstadt, that was a consultant for the museum, she is on a board called Aurora, and that's all they do are the, interactive type things. And so moving forward, you may want to look at that. But to me, some of that is premature until we get a little further along with the downtown plan. So,
I don't have concerns of I want to support spending money to preserve what we have, and I think we were talking to each other here because I was also like thinking, well, why don't we do a better job of showing off what we already have? And And maybe that the chamber has tried, right, and kind of the art walk that they've done before. But to show off what we have it be a city, chamber partnership to do that when we have individuals that come down to the downtown, and that
Yes.
do look forward to the history. I certainly stop, and if like there's something I can read or refer back to, I enjoy stopping and learning about it, but without some direction, I'm not quite sure what.
Right. And I don't know if y'all have noticed, but the chamber also recently put up some new signs downtown that will allow you to use your phone, look at with QR code, and it will automatically take you to their website, and that way they keep it updated all the time. So the murals are incorporated in that. I think a lot of people just see the signs and the sign looks the same, but if you'll go visit them, they have been all updated where they have left the static businesses that are downtown, but as part of the map, but then as businesses move out, they can update that and it stays up to date all the time. So that's one of the things. So
The resolution calls for the funding for the mural on Houston Smith's building.
yes,
Aren't we waiting for that wall to be bigger soon? I mean,
yes. So
premature.
Until we have,
Okay.
quite a bit of work has been done on the acquisition of that building. And
we anticipate that would be a year from now,
yeah,
basically.
Again, this is making sure that we're doing budget planning correctly to a certain extent. Cedric Huckabee is the artist who is a well-known, nationally renowned guy who is a Yale-trained artist, and he teaches out at UT Arlington. I met with him personally. He's enthusiastic about doing it. He's already talking to Mr. Gray about, history and learning, and so we're going to get a really good mural there. And his he's been clearly communicated with that the goal is we're buying Cowboys, we're knocking Cowboys down, we're going to give you a slate that goes from one side to the other, and he's looking forward to doing that mural in the summer of 2023. And in order to lock in a artist of that quality, I gotta have a lot of lead time because he's going to plan his next summer right away, and we need to grab that opportunity.
Of the proposed murals, frankly, I'm not crazy about the British Works one just because I don't think it has a sufficient tie to Terrell to justify the expenditure, is my opinion. The rest of them, I think, are obviously linked enough that I'm comfortable with that. But I'm prepared to move forward. The only recommendation I would make to the board is that, again, we just watch our words very carefully in these resolutions, and we authorize the transfer up to 250, not a lump 250, because just because we have it doesn't mean we have to spend it. So,
In my 2 cents is, I don't want to make our downtown look any older than it already is. And so when the opportunity comes for bright, Insta-worthy murals, I'm all in. But to your point about some of this being private property, Houston gets to pick what's on his building.
Right.
We support that, and I love that y'all pick such a high caliber artist to do it, and I trust that process. So how would y'all like to form a motion?
One more thought on what you were just saying too, that there was a mural that was redone in Mesquite, very similar to the one we have on the Rockwall Moore building, the old automobile.
Yes.
And when they restored it, they added the pretty, popular,
more vibrant.
like Welcome to Mesquite across the top. Grand Prairie had one too. He actually covered up an old mural with Grand Prairie, the word Grand Prairie, is almost like a stencil. So he put Grand Prairie on there and then painted over everything and painted around it. When he peeled it off, you still had the old mural through the Grand Prairie.
I love it.
So there's ways to keep that, but also make it what you said, Instagram worthy. And on that lot especially, that lot didn't get a lot of use, so if you can
Welcome
make
to
that a
Terrell.
place funniest murals I've seen, y'all probably seen the old cowboys with the selfie stick. Have you seen that one? Yeah, they had, it was an old Marlboro advertisement, and two cowboys on a horse. And they painted over the cigarette advertisement, and the cowboy now holds a selfie stick taking a picture. So you
Where's
have
that?
this historic- oh, gosh, I don't know. It's somewhere, it's in Texas. But it was really funny, and a lot of people were upset about it, but a lot of people go and look at it and get their picture with it.
That's what you want, people coming to
People that get
Terrell
upset about it
to
are
take their
probably
picture
gonna
with
be
our
us less than the people
walls.
with phones, so.
I like that idea.
Madam President, I would make a motion to approve resolution number 2022-2 with the amended language of transfer of up to $250,000.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you. All right, at this time, we will adjourn into executive session in accordance with Section 551 of the Texas Government Code. Section 551.087, deliberations regarding economic development negotiations. Mr. Sims.
Dawn says, hold on.
You didn't fail her. At this time, we'll reconvene into regular session and consider action, however, there is none. So in lieu of that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you.